Hello everybody, Justin from Playing Board Games here, and today I'm here to bring to you a new list video that is 10 new player questions answered in brackets quickly. I say quickly because the hope is that I'm going to be just summing up all of these things with just a nice quick little oomph. We're just trying to get through them. We're not going to be going into the deep minutia, but this is just like the basics for the questions answered here today. They're a little bit more complicated than what we can see, and there's always edge cases for things, but right now these are the basic answers to these questions. Let's dive in and get this thing going. Before I get in, I want to say consider liking and subscribing to the channel. We release a new Arkham Horror video every day of the week. So thank you so much for watching. Leave a comment at the end of the video or in the middle of the video if you're having a good time. Thanks for watching, and let's get this going. All right, question 1. When does Doom cause the agenda to advance? Doom causes the agenda to advance during the Mythos phase, specifically at step 1.3, the check Doom threshold step. When this happens, all Doom in play is checked, and if the threshold is hit or exceeded, the agenda advances. Otherwise, the agenda does not advance from Doom at any other time unless explicitly stated. A good example of the Doom advancing outside of step 1.3 is the encounter card's Ancient Evils. Spooky! So as you can see on there, it says this effect can cause the current agenda to advance. With that said, what happens to the Doom on enemies? Remember that Doom on enemies counts towards the Doom threshold, and when the agenda advances, all Doom in play is removed. This includes enemies, locations, and all other cards, so it's simple. Doom on enemies contributes to the agenda advancing, and when it advances, that Doom leaves play as well. Remember that this also applies to player cards' locations. Doom in play all works to the threshold, unless something says that it does not. What is the timing on lightning actions, and when can you use them outside of your turn? Lightning actions can be used at multiple points throughout the round, and the best way to familiarize yourself with when they can be used is by keeping the phase sequence timing chart handy. So you can see over there on corner, when I'm talking about a lightning action, I mean that little squiggle, the lightning bolt. So, as I said, keep the phase sequence timing chart handy. That's this guy right over here. This chart can be found on the back of the rules reference, on ArkhamDB, and on the Arkham Cards app. This chart breaks down all the windows that these lightning actions open up in a round. In the Mythos phase, there is one window. In the enemy phase, there are two windows. And in the upkeep phase, there is one window. In the investigation phase, these windows open at the start and after each player's turn, allowing for a lot of these windows to open during that phase. Two of these lightning action windows also open up during a skill test, allowing for potentially more windows of these to open than is what is listed on the sequence timing chart. So the best way to familiarize yourself is just keep the timing chart handy. I still look at it all the time. Just have it in a spot that you can get easy, whether it be on ArkhamDB, Arkham Cards, or the rulebook. And just if you're ever wondering when I can do something, reference it. So, now that's all hunky-dory, but can you use a lightning action multiple times in a phase? Unless you can't pay the cost of the action, you can use it multiple times in a phase. A good example of this is in Hard Knocks. The lightning action on Hard Knocks costs one resource, and as long as you have the resource to pay the cost of the action, you can use it multiple times. So, for example, if you are trying to evade a very scary enemy and you have 3 resources, you can use Hard Knocks 3 times to increase your foot score by 3. Compare this to Well Connected, with the cost as exhausting the card. So you can see exhaust Well Connected, you get +1 skill value for this test for every 5 resources you have. This means that you cannot use Well Connected's lightning action more than once because it exhausts as part of its cost. Nice and easy so far. Why do locations have shroud but no clues? Pondering question. While it doesn't come up commonly, there are reasons why this may matter. The simplest explanation is that there are multiple effects that may place clues on locations, and this means that every location needs to have a shroud value. Quick Study is an example of a secret card that places your clues on your location. If the location you place this clue on didn't have a shroud value, you wouldn't be able to determine the difficulty of the skill test to investigate, which means that clue would live on that location in limbo unless you had other tricks to pick it up. Basically, the shroud value is determining the difficulty of your investigations for that location. So all locations are going to have a shroud value unless they do something weird. Like I said, weird edge cases where it might not matter, but every location has a shroud for that reason. There are also times when the shroud is used as a balancing tool. This doesn't happen commonly, but if there are a lot of revealed locations, a higher shroud location may exist to avoid deciphered reality being too good, because after all, why should a 5 XP card be too good? I'm joking, deciphered reality is still good even if you can't like be bombastic with it, but it actually is one of those things that you will notice if you're playing this deck. You'll notice suddenly, why is there a 6 shroud location here? It makes my deciphered reality so much tougher. How the heck does prey work? Great question. Prey in the rulebook states that given the opportunity, some enemies will pursue a defined investigator. This means that if an enemy with prey would engage an investigator at its location and has multiple options to engage, it'll engage its prey. We see that in the top left here, where the avian thrall, who is readied at this location, he is going to engage Nathaniel Cho over Rex Murphy because Nathaniel Cho has lower book. This also means that if an enemy with hunter and prey has 2 investigators that are its nearest investigator, it'll go after its prey. So if you are that enemy's prey, but another investigator is closer to that enemy, it'll go after that investigator. You can see that just down below me. Rex and Nathaniel are both equidistant from the avian thrall, who I don't know how he got into Arkham. We have a problem there, but let's not worry about that. He's going to go after Nathaniel Cho. However, if Nathaniel Cho was 2 locations away and Rex was still 1, the avian thrall would go after Rex. So, to put it simply, prey breaks ties. If investigators are equidistant from a prey enemy or at the same location, that is when prey matters. It's also important to know that when you draw a prey enemy from the encounter deck without a spawn keyword, the prey ability doesn't matter. You drew that enemy, and that enemy is yours. Love it and cherish it forever. The exception to this is when an enemy has prey only. In that case, as the keyword states, they care about their prey, ignoring all other investigators. Yes, that means they don't engage other investigators. They're that focused on killing you. I'd take it as a compliment. How does upgrading cards work? All right. When you upgrade a card, you replace the lower level version of that card with its higher level version. You pay the difference in experience between the 2 cards. Let's use Shriveling as our example for this. Shriveling has a level 0 version, a level 3 version, and a level 5 version. If you have the level 0 version, you can spend 3 experience to get the level 3 version, replacing the level 0 version in your deck. You could also spend 5 experience instead to get the level 5 version. However, you can instead upgrade in stages. This means that if you have the level 3 Shriveling, you can upgrade to the level 5 version at the cost of 2 experience. And remember, you pay the difference between the 2 cards when upgrading. You might be wondering, why do I do this? It's mostly if you don't have 5 experience, but you have 3 experience, you can buy in stages. It's kind of like putting the card on, doing a layaway or like payment in stages, that kind of thing. Now, can you buy an upgraded version of a card if you don't have the lower level in your deck? Absolutely you can. What I just said about paying the difference only matters when you're upgrading a card to an upgraded version of that card. You can also just buy a card for its experience cost to add that card to your deck. In this case, the concept of the difference between levels is ignored. You don't get a discount when you turn a level 1 card into a level 3 card if they have different names because you aren't upgrading that card. And you also really wouldn't want to do that. You're not going to want to turn your Bangle of Jinxes into a Nightmare Bauble, in this case, as the example we have here. You would instead pay 1 experience for the Bangle, 3 experience for the Nightmare, add them to your deck. Most commonly, you'll be using this to add better cards to your deck. You'll pay the full experience cost of the card, and that card will place a level 0 card in your deck. Can I use an action on an asset that has been exhausted? This one doesn't come up too commonly, but yes. Unless a card says otherwise, you can use the action on an asset when it is exhausted. A good example of this can be found on both Daniela's Wrench and Butterfly Swords. As you can see here, the 2 examples that we have on the screen. These cards both exhaust, but they each have an action that can be used even if the card is exhausted. This would be a different story if those actions require the card to exhaust, like Duke the dog on the screen here, but because they don't, you can fight with them even while they are exhausted. This also matters for passive effects. Taboo Dr. Milan He gives +1 book even when he is exhausted. It's a passive effect. It's there. You can use it even when he's exhausted after he gave you the resource. Last question for this video. What should I buy? This is a hard question to answer quickly, like it is, but I do know that a lot of players just getting into the game may wonder about it. There's a lot to this game and it can be very daunting. For a detailed breakdown, we have 2 buy guides which you can find in the description of this video. Here in this video, I will say that you should buy what your budget allows first and foremost. You don't need to rush and buy everything. Buy what your budget can allow, and definitely be okay buying in stages. That's the first and most important thing here. You want to make sure that you don't get FOMO, because the things will be reprinted, and especially now that there's a new thing coming out, like a new release format for this, just buy with what your budget allows. Do not worry about getting everything all at once. Campaigns in this game are very replayable, meaning that you can get a lot of bang for your buck from them. In addition, new player cards can help bump up replayability more than a new campaign would. It does sound strange. Admittedly, it does sound strange, but trying a different deck through the same campaign can be better than trying a different campaign with the same deck. The replayability from campaigns come from the story decisions you make, the campaigns themselves, then also each scenario, just like how things play out. The one playthrough of The House Always Wins can be completely different from the next one, depending on the order of the encounter deck that you've drawn from. And that's where a big chunk of the replayability comes from. Right now, a new release model is currently being rolled out and has never been better to get into this game. I recommend checking out the Dunwich Legacy Investigator and Campaign expansions, then checking out the Edge of the Earth Investigator and Campaign expansions, and then the upcoming Path to Carcosa Investigator and Campaign expansions as well. As I said, things are changing. They have a new release format, and we're going to start getting them all coming out, and you should just buy them as they come out. Once again, most importantly, when your budget allows for it. However, all this said, Travis, Byrne, and myself go into greater detail into this in the buy guides in the description down below. Boom! 10 new player questions answered nice and quickly. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions that you want to see me revisit in this format, please let me know in the comments. I would love to do something like this again. This is a new style of video for me, and I actually had a really good time recording it. So I hope you enjoyed it as well. Once again, like and comment, subscribe. It all helps our channel grow and allows us to make more. Thank you so much for watching. We'll be back very soon. Have a good one, and as always, GG's.